You ever sit in traffic so long you start questioning every life decision you've ever made? Now picture this. You're trapped on a ramp, cars backed up for blocks every single day while the people responsible sit comfortably in their offices, ignoring your calls. That was my reality, until I decided enough was enough. And the way I got revenge? Let's just say, they were begging me to stop within 48 hours. If you've ever been ignored by people in power, if you've ever wished you could make them pay attention, then hit that like button right now, subscribe, and buckle up, because this story is one of the most satisfying real-life revenge tales you'll ever hear. I live in a mid-sized town in Oregon, the kind of place where life was supposed to be simple, predictable, maybe even boring, but then came the so-called improvements. The Oregon Department of Transportation, or ODOT, decided to install these metered ramp lights on the main highway. The idea was supposed to be traffic control. In reality, it was pure hell. Imagine this. Every time you wanted to get onto the highway, there was a traffic light at the ramp. And it wasn't a short pause. Oh no. The interval was set at 15 seconds per car. That might not sound terrible at first, but think about it, 15 seconds. Multiply that by 20 cars, 30 cars, 40 cars. Soon you've got traffic backed up so far that people can't even leave their neighborhoods. For me, what used to be a 5-minute on-ramp became a 20-minute daily nightmare. Every morning I sat in my car watching the clock, feeling my blood pressure rise, knowing that once again, I'd be late to work because of some genius decision made by people who clearly didn't have to suffer through their own rules. The frustration wasn't just mine. Drivers would honk, yell out their windows, some even pounding on their steering wheels. You could feel the rage in the air. And the worst part? Nothing was being done about it. Now, I'm not the kind of person who just complains and does nothing. At first, I tried to go through the proper channels. I made phone calls. I wrote emails. I filled out complaint forms. But here's where it got infuriating. It wasn't the city's responsibility. It wasn't the county's either. No, the ramps were controlled directly by ODOT. That meant more bureaucracy, more red tape, more excuses. Finally, I got the names of the 2 traffic engineers in charge of those lights. Let's call them Dennis and Bill. These 2 guys had the power to fix everything with a single decision. So I left them voicemails. Dozens of them. I even managed to get one of them on the phone once. He sounded polite enough, but at the end of the conversation, nothing changed. Days went by. Then weeks. Every morning, the same soul-crushing wait on the ramp. I can't describe the level of helplessness. It wasn't just about being late. It was about being ignored. About knowing that the people who were supposed to serve the public didn't care enough to even acknowledge the problem. That's when something in me snapped. One morning, I sat there in my car staring at the ramp light. 15 seconds per car, hundreds of people trapped, and all I could think was, these guys are sitting comfortably in their homes while the rest of us suffer. And that thought sparked an idea. See, this was the early 2000s. Back then, phone books were still a thing. And you know what I found when I flipped open mine? Both Dennis and Bill had their home phone numbers listed. That was my breaking point. That was the moment I decided, if they won't listen to polite complaints, maybe they'll listen when the whole town knows exactly who's responsible. I went down to my garage and found a huge sheet of plywood, 4 feet by 8 feet, big enough that no one could miss it. Then I grabbed some paint, a brush, and went to work. In bold, clear letters, I wrote, "Tired of these idiotic ramp lights? Call the ODOT engineers responsible. Dennis Mimik Shiix, 503 Xiix Bill Key 503 Xiix, and let them know what you think." When I finished, I stood back and admired it. This wasn't just a sign. It was a weapon. The next day, I took it to the ramp. 4 in the afternoon. Rush hour. Cars were lined up as far as I could see. I planted myself on the side of the road, holding that giant sign high for every driver to see. The reaction? Immediate. Drivers honked their horns, gave me thumbs up, some even shouted, "Thank you," out their windows. You could see the anger bubbling over, and now finally they had a target. For 2 straight days, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., I stood there with that sign. Hundreds of drivers saw it. Dozens must have picked up their phones that very evening. And you know those engineers? They couldn't ignore it anymore. On the second evening, my phone rang. It was one of them, Dennis or Bill, I honestly don't remember which. His voice was nervous, almost desperate. "Please," he said, "you have to stop with the sign." I didn't yell. I didn't rant. I just gave him the same response every time he tried to bargain. "Fix the fucking lights," he stammered. "If we fix the lights, will you take the sign down?" I repeated, "Fix the fucking lights." There was a long pause, and then finally a defeated, "Okay." The very next day I drove by the ramp and saw something I hadn't seen in months, an ODOT survey crew. Clipboards, counters, the whole deal. They were actually studying the traffic. And the day after that, like magic, the lights were reset. 15 seconds became just 3. Cars flowed smoothly again. The nightmare was over. Months of frustration, ignored complaints, wasted mornings, all solved in less than 48 hours because I forced accountability. I can't even describe the feeling. For the first time in months, I merged onto the highway without sitting in line for half my morning. No more honking, no more rage, no more helplessness. The best part? Knowing that those engineers only acted because I made them uncomfortable. They had to deal with the same kind of pressure they'd been putting on everyone else. And that's the truth about bureaucracy. They'll ignore you forever until you make it personal. Sometimes the only way to get justice is to flip the script and give them a taste of their own medicine. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life revenge tales. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? I can't wait to read your stories.